Welcome back to the show, everyone. And thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you to the contributors to the show as well. You guys really do support and help me to be able to continue the show and bring you valuable free information. Today, I am very, very honored, and it's a pleasure to have with me one of my favorite social media influencers, Dom the Hypnotist, who I found because of obviously my listeners know that I'm a hypnotherapist. So you know that I would also be connected with or follow fellow hypnotherapists. And I found Dom, and then I found that he was mentioned on Joe Rogan. So I had to dive in once I heard that. And so before we get started, just a quick note to my listeners and my contributors. If this show continues to bring you value, please, this is just a reminder and a request to share it, subscribe so you're notified of new episodes and don't miss a thing. And please, if you do feel called, there is a donate and a contribution button in the show notes. You can hit that and help this show continue to go on. So Dom the Hypnotist, that's what I'm going to call you, but your full name is Dominic Bertoncini. And Dom has gained recognition, including mentions on the Joe Rogan podcast and ESPN, for his innovative and effective hypnosis techniques. And as a fellow hypnotherapist, I really greatly admire Dom's approach to normalizing and teaching hypnosis to the masses. He presents this in a very straightforward manner, no frills, no gimmicks. It's very straightforward and easy to understand, that consistently delivers profound results in his clients and in the people that follow him. Dom specializes in working with athletes, including those in the UFC and the NFL, and he's even worked with celebrities like Brian Callen. I've seen your work with him. Pretty
Brian's
interesting.
great.
His expertise lies in helping individuals overcome financial barriers, break through limitations to achieve success, and enhance their performance to operate at peak levels. And I'm positive I'm only scratching the surface here. I know you also are in jiu-jitsu and these types of things, but I can tell you that he is a positive force in helping people unlock their fullest potential. And Dom, I just thank you, and I'm so honored to be with you here today. Thanks for your time on my show today.
Well, thanks for having me. That was a great intro. You got me hyped up over here. I'm like, I am cool. No, so thank you for that. That's awesome.
Real
And it's always nice to
self-validation.
talk to other people who are in the industry and kind of get their perspective on, how they do things. And so, yeah, this is great.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited for this conversation because it's not often that I get to dive deep into the topic of hypnosis. I talk about the subconscious mind, but not in the way that you do. And that's why I really wanted to have this conversation. But before we even go into that, I'm really curious to hear how you got into this realm, what called you into it, and a little bit of your story.
Yeah, well, it was completely by accident, really. You could call it divine intervention, or I don't know. But basically, from the time I graduated high school till about 30 years old, I sold life insurance and I did some other things in between there. And I was really, really good at it. However, towards the end of the last 2 years or so that I was doing it, I just fell out of love with it. I just wasn't excited anymore. But I did it because I was really good at it and I made money at it. But I would drive around when back then I would drive around to people's houses and we'd do appointments and things like that. And I would just think to myself, like, God, there's no way that I can imagine myself doing this for another 10 or 20 more years. Like, there's got to be something else out there, right? There's got to be another way. But, and I tried some other endeavors that just didn't work out. And so I sort of felt trapped. Now, there came a point where, everything started to kind of fall apart. I think because I lost that excitement and that passion about it, that I just got myself in a really bad, some other businesses that I tried, I got myself in a bunch of debt and I just put myself in a really bad position. And so, one day my mom, let me share with you how this all came to be. So my mom called me one day. I think it was like in October of November of 2018. And my mom's like, son, I just went to this hypnosis course and it changed my life. Oh my God, it was so amazing. Like, you got to go to it. It was so great, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, okay, cool. Like, how much is the course? I think it was like $3,500 or $5,000 or whatever. And I'm like, okay, yeah. Okay, mom, I'll let you know. Let me think about it. Right. So little did my mom know that 1 month prior to that, I was so broke and so broken that I had like $42,000 of credit cards on like 8 different credit cards that I just completely just let go of. I just stopped making my payments. Um, and I called up the bank. I'm like, hey, can you come get my car? I can't make my $600, $800 payment or whatever it was. And I basically just like quit. And the
Wow.
reason I didn't tell my mom that, because I was super ashamed and embarrassed about my situation, because here I am, I was 29 or 30 at the time. Yeah, I think it was 30. And I'm just like, damn, I've been working for 12 years from 18 to 30 and I have nothing to show for it. Nothing. And I'm fully capable. I'm a strong man. Like, there's no excuse for why I haven't been able to create success. And so I just felt like, wow, my mom had me when she was 15, and my mom grinded her ass off going to college, getting her master's degree, joining the military, starting her businesses. And she did that with kids. And I couldn't even muster up, a couple $1,000s to my name. So fast forward, Christmas of 2018, my mom actually surprised me with the hypnosis course as a Christmas gift. Now, it wasn't the same one that she went to. It was like a 2-day, introductory course, like a cheaper one. So I was like, oh, this is cool. I'll go to this course and, I'll learn a cool party trick or something, or maybe really I wanted to figure out what was going on in my head. You know what I mean? To figure out
Uh-huh.
why I was stuck in my life. And what was interesting about it is becoming a hypnotist was literally the furthest thing from my mind. Like, there wasn't an ounce or a speck, at least consciously, right? Maybe my higher self wanted to, but I was
Yeah.
just like,
Well,
and because I associated hypnotists back then with like magicians and
it's not good.
mentalists, and they're like kind of dorky, you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
I'm a little, I'm fun. I could be funny, but I'm not a goofy guy. I'm not a
Or like a
nerd or a dork.
performer.
What's that?
Or like a performer.
Yeah, or like a performer. And I was like, okay. But I went to this course and I just went with an open mind, and in those 2 days, I just completely like transformed as a person. When I got out, I walked different, I talked different, I looked different, I felt different, just everything about me was different. So when I got out of that course, I remember literally throwing up my hands like this, and I was like, oh my God, like, this is it. I finally found that thing. When I would drive around in my car thinking there's got to be something else out there, there's got to be another way, I said, this is the thing I was meant to do. And I realized if I can help people feel like I felt that day in that short amount of time span, I was like, sign me up. Right. So fast forward, what ended up happening was I just started taking massive action. I literally just started hypnotizing everybody and their mom for free. Um, so like the first week I went out, I just started posting it on social media. I started texting people. I was like, hey, I just learned hypnosis. Can I test it on you? Whatever. So anyways, fast forward, a week goes by. I worked with like 50 something people. And again, I did it all for free. But then I had the courage. I'm like, okay, I'm actually good at this. It didn't just work on the people in the course, it's working on people outside the course.
Mhm.
So I mustered up the courage to say, hey, I'll do a free session with you, but what I want in exchange is a testimonial. And I want
Yeah.
people to post it to their social medias. So fast forward, another week goes by. So essentially within that 2 weeks, I hypnotized like 100 people, a little bit over 100. Um, and I woke up 2 weeks of the day, and I remember, I had like 8 or 10 appointments that day to go sell insurance. And when I went to I got dressed and everything, but when I was going to go to my car, I just could not physically get my body to go. My conscious mind was like, dude, you got to go, you got to make money, you got to. I had a baby on the way too, but my body, my subconscious was like, nah, man, we're done. So I messaged my assistant and I said, hey, call everybody on our appointment schedule today. And I said, that's it. I'm never selling another insurance policy ever again in my life. And then I quit. And what was funny is my first 2 clients were my little brother and sister. So I called them up and I basically like kind of strong arm them into giving me their money. I was like, hey, I'm a full-time hypnotist now. I need your help. I'm going to hook you up $200 for 2 sessions. Come on, help me out. My sister was like, okay, cool. My little brother was like, I don't know, 21 at the time. He's super broke. He's like, oh man. I'm like, come on, bro, help me out. Help me out. So I did my
Wow.
sessions with them, and then everything from there, took off.
It's funny because in a weird way, I assumed that you would have come from some fitness background because I don't know what it is. A lot of people who come from the health and fitness background go into this type of work. Either it's
Mhm.
hypnosis or it's some other speaking or something like that. What I find really interesting, though, in your story is you are actually hypnotized. Most of what you talk about and do is helping people to achieve success, which is like, and usually what I find is that what typically brings us into hypnosis or the thing that we do with our life is usually just like a gateway and it evolves, but you really stayed consistent over time. From what I see, with you started with the success thing, you're still doing the success thing, and that's a lot of what you do. And am I correct in saying that?
Well, no, I actually initially started just helping people. I remember actually, so that 2 weeks happened. I'm like, okay, how am I going to get leads? Because one thing I did learn from selling insurance is you got to have leads, you got to have marketing and sales, right? Marketing, sales, fulfillment. So I used to run my own ads on Facebook. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to create a Facebook ad and I'm going to just run ads for quit smoking. So I put together this
Um,
catchy title. It was like, um, 90% of people fail, try to quit smoking and fail trying to quit cold turkey. Find out what the 3% are doing or something like that, or find out how you can quit smoking in under an hour. So people would opt in. I would call them and I do my little sales call like, hey, blah, blah, blah. And so I ended up getting a couple of clients here in Vegas for like, I don't know, it was like $300 or something for like a session or two. I don't remember, but it was actually really, it started working. I was like, holy shit. But very quickly, I realized I did not want to work with people that were doing quit smoking.
yeah.
So then it turned into working with people on like anxiety and negative emotions and stuff like that, anger, sadness, things like that. And then I tried other things, like I try to work with people with addiction. That is not for me, just not for me at all. Um, and I tried these different things, and it wasn't until I started having success, like financially, that I felt comfortable with helping other people with their financial success.
Hmm.
So it wasn't like I'm like this broke dude that, started being like, hey, you can, make hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. But meanwhile, I'm broke as fuck. I
Yeah.
actually started having success before I started hypnotizing people for success. Um, and
Interesting.
so that's how it all kind of
That's an
unfolded.
interesting story. That's interesting. And I know you brought up this misconception with it, which is actually a part of one of the first things I wanted to talk about with hypnosis in general is, you went into it with some misconceptions that it was um what do you call it, like magicians and things like that.
Yeah.
Have you found, because I have found that it seems as though, and maybe this is just my awareness of it expanding, but it seems as though hypnosis is becoming more widely recognized and accepted, whereas there was a lot of stigma, and there still is, of course, that we have to overcome around hypnosis in general. But it seems like people are waking up to this as a solution to a lot of things. Why do
Yeah.
you think that is?
I think it's a couple things. One, everything that has kind of unfolded since 2019 and 2020, people are starting to wake up to all the BS that's going on. And I
Mhm.
think, especially with like pharmaceuticals and all that stuff, people started to realize like, wait a minute, this isn't what I've thought it was, right? That
Mhm.
I've been misled or I've been lied to or whatever. And so I think part of that led people to look for more holistic approaches with everything, with their diet, with their workouts, with their mindset, things like that. So I think that's one part of it. I think the other part of it is people like Joe Rogan or Rob Dyrdek or these like really influential people actually have talked about it. Not that they talk about it all the time, but they have brought it into like their bubble of people. And so I think it's just been a combination of the people finding out about it and then those people sharing it more. And so it's just kind of like whatever you want to
Right.
call that, like a snowball effect, right? So I think that's really what made it all, come to the consciousness of people.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that in the onset of the pandemic and everything, there was a kind of a mass awakening that happened, that touched all areas of people's life and health and wellness and spirituality. And I also think that there was a portion of it that had to do with people finally felt this, and I hate to say this, but people finally felt desperate enough to be like,
Yeah,
okay, I'm willing to try something that's outside of what I feel is in the box, because I'm like to this point where I'm in pain and I
right.
need I need something to work. I need hope. They needed hope. It was what they
Yeah,
needed.
yeah. I can't tell you how many people have told me that in like a DM or a phone call. Like, man, I've tried everything. I've been to therapy, I've taken pills, I've had back surgery and all this stuff. And, nothing works. So, yeah, it's funny. I've had that conversation many, many times. Like, you're my last hope, or this is the last, this is my last thing I'm going to try. And
Yeah,
it
no
works so
pressure.
powerfully.
Yeah, and it's like if if we just trust in the process, it does work. And I have the same conversation. People after one session, it's like, "Oh my God, I've just experienced more than what I've had in like 3 years of talk therapy," or whatever that may
Oh,
be.
I can't tell you how many times I've heard that same thing. Like, dude,
Mhm.
I've been working on that in therapy for 2 years, and we just
Yeah.
did that in 5 minutes. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, you know?
Yeah. But here, so there's like a gateway to that though. I feel like people have to be, obviously, we know about the levels of hypnosis and the certain conscious blocks that we have too. But what about the spiritual misconceptions? Because I really want to talk about this because it's very important that people get clear on this. There is a misconception, I'm sure you've heard of this too, that being hypnotized or being in hypnosis opens portals.
Hmm.
Or that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like it opens you up to being like taken over or whatever.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Can hypnosis be used as a way to do that? For sure. And what I mean by that is there's people that channel, I don't do this, but there's people that will channel like people through hypnosis. I forget the name of the type of hypnosis it's called, but essentially what the hypnotist will do is put somebody under hypnosis, and then they invite like their dead mother or
Yeah,
whoever to, who knows, right? But that happens, and then they're able to speak or whatever messages. So there's definitely like the quote unquote channeling that people can do. But again, with hypnosis, just like anything else, it's just a tool. So if you're using it for stuff like that, then you're opening yourself up to whatever those things may be. But if you're using it for your mindset and to help you improve, and that's the intention behind it, that's what it's used for. If you're using it to manipulate people, you could definitely use it to manipulate people. So it's all about the intention of what you're going in for. So if you're just going in to get hypnotized, to quit smoking, or to help your success, like you don't have to worry about, having opening up portals to, people inhabiting you or spirits or whatever.
that's a really good point that you bring up the channeling, because that has to do more with the practitioner than the client themselves, obviously, and they can opt in or out of that. So it's like what I hear you saying is that there is a safety built around this, because this is what I try to tell people all the time. It's like you you can't just go into something and have something happen outside of your permitting it, right?
Hmm.
And actually
Exactly.
that's a difference between doing something like hypnosis, which induces an um altered state in a way. I guess we could dive into that, rather than psychedelics, right? And if we want to like talk about the difference between the two, people are more willing to do psychedelics sometimes than they are to do hypnosis. And it's like there you actually don't have control.
Yeah,
In a
yeah,
way
yeah, yeah.
you're off, right? Like the protective measures of the subconscious mind do actually protect you from feeling too much, seeing too much, getting things that you're not ready for. In psychedelic
Hmm.
world, you don't have that.
Right, right. Yeah, and that's why I mean, I've done mushrooms, but it's been years, maybe 8, 9 years. And as I got into this realm, I realized like, some of the consequences of doing that stuff. And, the people that do ayahuasca and shrooms and all that would argue it, but alls I know is you can do that same kind of work without altering your state and without putting yourself in that sort of, position where you don't have control.
Mhm.
And so I just prefer to stay away from that. I have had, clients who have done sessions with me, and they're like, "Dude, I've done ayahuasca, I've done mushrooms, and this was just like that." But
Yes.
there's no like, I don't shit myself, I don't throw up, I don't see
Yeah.
other stuff. Like I get the same out of it, but so much more. So the
Yes.
other thing too is like when you're doing that kind of stuff, you're really um, you're you may be accelerating the process too fast.
Yes.
So in other words, like if you go from 0 to 100 to your awakening and all this stuff, you may not be ready for it. Like
Yes.
it's just like a muscle. You got to build you got to build yourself to be able to handle certain things. And I just see a lot of people do that stuff, and I've seen people, me and my buddy, we have an inside joke. And again, if people are offended who do ayahuasca, then that's on them. But um, we have this joke that people who do ayahuasca are always really arrogant, and they always feel like they have all the answers in the world. And the other thing that happens is they lose this sense of motivation or like,
Mhm.
aggression towards life, not in a bad way, but like going out there, because it becomes this weird thing where they don't want to do anything, and nothing matters, and this
Nothing
and this and
matters. Yeah.
that. And I just, I don't want to mess with that stuff. So I just stay away from it. And but I have had people talk about microdosing. It's been very helpful for them. But here's the thing. I've also seen people get addicted to microdosing, and they're literally microdosing every day. And every
Yeah.
time you see them, their pupils are just like this, and they're like, "Hey man, here's some microdosing. It feels great." I'm like, "Yeah, but now you're addicted, and who knows what the long-term consequences of that may be." So
Yeah.
I don't know. I just stay away from it.
No, yeah. I like that because that's what my main point with that is saying that um the safety of hypnosis supplies that you still have the protective measures of your subconscious mind that prevent that, what you just said, being overloaded, being like blasted into the black hole of awakening and healing. And sometimes people actually come out the other side of that worse
Hmm. Hmm.
because of the fact that that was stripped away. Whereas in what we're talking about, um, when you can keep it here, right, and when you can keep it here where it's supposed to be, um, we actually are. It's like we're fed that information in that healing process at a rate that we can handle, so we're not overloaded. Yet we still get these same effects of an experience like the ayahuasca. And I love that you said the arrogance about ayahuasca, because it's like all of the spiritualists nowadays that they have the answer to everything. And I'm like, but you're still living on this earth. How does
Yeah,
that
yeah,
apply
yeah.
to here right now? So
Right, right.
yeah.
Well, and here's something I learned going through my own journey of learning about spirituality and everything is because some people, they just want to stay in the spiritual, and that's all they care about, and nothing matters, and the physical and material, nothing. But that's actually not the way it's supposed to go. We're supposed to master the material and the physical. If you're too material and you have no spirituality, then you're just going to be most likely, miserable, and you might have a lot of stuff, but you don't have that connection to God or whatever people believe in. And then if you're like super spiritual, but you don't care about material things, then you're just going to be super broke and just like trying to make it through life without any success. So it's a matter of having both, right? The mastering the physical and the spiritual simultaneously. And then that actually helps with each other, right? Like
Right.
you can use spirituality to help you master the physical. You can use, when you master the physical, that helps you master spirituality when it, especially
Absolutely.
when it comes to intuition and all these kinds of things. So
Yeah, which I know you've been talking a lot about. So I'd love to talk about that too. But yeah, it's like bridging the two. It's how to become a bridge because we are put
Mhm.
here on this physical earth for for a reason. I want to talk really quickly about the limitations of hypnosis because we talk it up because
Mhm.
it needs to be talked up more
Right,
because
right.
really it. But what about the limitations and what limitations are there?
I've had a client who actually wasn't my client. She was well, she was, but she worked with one of the hypnotherapists that work on my team, not with me, but one of my team members. And and there's almost 300 people who could vouch for what I'm saying, what I'm about to say. But this woman, a year and a half ago, she went completely blind because she has type 1 diabetes. She was born with diabetes and she uses insulin, all this stuff, and she didn't take care of herself. And eventually that led to retinopathy. So she went from being able to see her whole life to suddenly everything's black. And through the process of working with our team members and helping her clear out her negative emotions and things around that, plus whatever else she was doing, now she can literally see again. She can see, she was just in one of our hypnosis trainings and she's like, yeah, I can read on my phone. Obviously, like the letters on her phone are like this big, right? But she can see again. And so I've
Wow.
just seen too many miracles. I mean, I've seen people completely heal their body from physical pain. That's one of the things I do at my live events is I'll bring somebody up on stage and we'll do a hypnosis session in the matter of 20, 30 minutes. Their pain that they've had for a decade and they've had multiple surgeries, all the medication, all this stuff is just gone, like right before people's eyes. So I don't know what the limitations are. I mean, I've been able to push them for myself because if you would have told me years ago, hey, one day some lady's going to come through your system and she's going to completely heal from her blindness, I would say that's impossible. Or, people who've had this fibromyalgia and their entire body's in pain 24/7 and they're able to heal that. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the limitations are, to be honest.
I feel like, first of all, just hearing you say that is inspiring, and I want everyone to like really pause and hear what he just said. That that's a real life experience that is happening with power of hypnosis. And quick question on that, by the way, are you
Mhm.
using hypnosis or do you do hypnotherapy, like the therapeutic part on stage in those types of things? Because there's a differentiation between the two. Hypnosis is more you inserting suggestions. Hypnotherapy, they're working with, like you said, the parts of themselves, the emotional aspects that are causing the illness in the first place. Or are you doing both?
Yeah, it's hypnotherapy. Yeah,
Okay.
it's just going through a series of questions while they're in trance and bringing to the surface what is it that is keeping them in that place,
Yeah.
and then removing you know, the um, the unconscious need to hold on to the pain, and
Yeah.
then boom, it just happens. It's funny
Yeah.
because the first time I started doing this with pain, and pain isn't something I like specialize in. Um, I like to do it to show people the power of it. Cause like, look, if we can heal her pain that she's had for 10 years, imagine what this can do for you in your business and your relationships and other aspects of your life. And so it's like the shock and awe factor.
All right.
Um, but I remember like the first time I was having a bad day and my former COO, she goes, Dom, when I used to have a bad day, I would just go out and give my gift away for free. She's like, I would just find people she was a chiropractor. So she's like, I would just adjust people because that look that is on their face when you heal them of their pain and like gives you that energy. So I said, oh, okay, cool. So I said, okay, I'm going to go live on Instagram and I'm going to find somebody to help heal their pain. So, anyways, I brought this woman on, did the whole thing, and then boom, it went away. And I was super nervous. 'Cause I'm like, there's like 50, 60 people on. I'm like, what's about to happen? Am I going to is this going to fall flat and it's not going to work? And by the way, I've never had anybody who came to me for pain and it wasn't from an injury, meaning it's like, it's not like they just crash their car and their back is messed up. And although hypnosis can work in that as well, but like it's some emotional thing. I've never had anybody, zero people come to me and we weren't able to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Literally. And I've done it with, I can't even tell you how many people. And So anyways, after I did that, I would do it again. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll go live. And I think on that live, I did like 3 people. I don't know these people. I'm just like, hey, random person who has pain, type pain in the chat and I'll, do it. And then and then when I did it, I had a live event. We had about almost 300 people there. And this was in January. And I brought this lady up on stage and I'm like, fuck, is this going to be the time? Is this going to be the time where it doesn't work, right in front of all these people? And it worked. And then I brought on another one. And then, it just works. So yeah, it's very, very fascinating.
Yeah, I feel like when it comes to this, like the best answer for limitations lies in, I guess, the person receiving and their openness and their level of resistance to it, right? Because the process itself works. It's like, but we do have, I mean, and we can talk about that too, resistance to hypnosis or levels of, I'm sure you do this too, like suggestibility testing and these types of things. What do you find in there? Like, do you do these things first and actually before we even go there, I really want to speak to my listeners because I like have this intuition, this intuitive feeling that people listening are going to be like, well, what's the process like? Like, what is this? What are you even doing? Right. And we need to describe like what we're doing. And the whole point of hypnosis is to be able to access, the parts of our subconscious mind that hold this information that are actually causing these physical ailments or whatever other ailments. So let's just briefly talk about what the hell we're even doing here.
Yeah. So to answer your question on the suggestibility test thing, I haven't done on a one-on-one client. I haven't done that for a long time. And the reason why, one is, I have a team that usually do like consultations and stuff like that. And so they kind of do that process. The other thing is, as you start to gain more authority in your field, the less you have to do, right? The less you have to prove certain things. So in the beginning, I would do it every time, right? And now I have this mindset that like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be done. I can still do the sessions. And so having that authority in the space definitely helps with that. The other thing is, when it comes to hypnosis, one of the most important things that needs to be established is respect. So the subconscious will only accept suggestions from somebody it respects. So if the person that you're potentially working with does not respect you, it doesn't matter how good of a hypnotist you are, it's not going to work. This is why often our best friends could give us the best advice ever, but we don't respect them in the sense of like looking for somebody to give us an authority. So we don't listen. Now, somebody that we do see as an authority, a boss, somebody you look up to, a celebrity, they could tell us the same exact thing. Actually, they could give us worse advice and we'll take it because they have that authority. So it's the same thing with hypnosis. So if you want to be an effective hypnotherapist or a hypnotist, you have to establish respect and authority so that people trust you. And I've worked with one-on-one over 2,000 people, and most of them is like multiple sessions. And I've hypnotized thousands of people in groups and stuff like that. So when I go into a session, there's no more question. I used to question, is this going to work? Is this going to work? Because there's always new things that come up. It's like, okay, I hope this works. I hope this works. I hope this works. And it just works. It just works. So now, on an energetic level, people feel that and they're like, okay, this dude knows what the fuck he's doing.
And you feel safe in that.
Yeah, exactly. You feel like, all right, take the reins,
right.
have
I'm
at
here.
it.
I'm open. That's
Yeah.
you're like automatically opting in. If I feel safe and I feel this dude knows what the hell he's doing, I feel safe that he's gonna, be able to lead the ship. I can now let go and I can be open. And then that openness instantly is like a contract being built. The subconscious mind is like, yeah, okay, I'm in this, let's go. But even what you just said is fascinating because it's so true. Like your spouse or your friends give you advice, but authority figure, and that's actually one of the things that how we become hypnotized at very young ages, right? Is like we know that that we're being hypnotized in general without being in a trance state. We're still hypnotizable, especially at those young forming ages, from authority figures, from repetition, from these types of things. So it's almost like that's interesting that you bring that up because I realize that doesn't change actually in our adulthood. That's still the case.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, authority is very, very powerful for getting people to do things, right? It's like you show up with we were just in Tulum. I was doing a retreat you had mentioned. I don't know if you mentioned, I think it was before our little convo. And it's funny. So you go to these ruins. One of the days, like a half day, we took the clients to go see the ruins and go to the beach. And so you're driving on this street, on the main street, and then you turn into this area where you go park, and then you walk like a mile to the beach, right? So as you're pulling in, there's all these people and they have like these official shirts on and they're trying to sell you on snorkeling and all this stuff, right? So you pull in, and because they have the dress and the look and the authority, you think that like you have to stop to talk to them, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So we did our first one a couple months ago, and we pulled in, and I'm like, oh shoot, these are like the parking people. I gotta find, I gotta listen to them. And then when they started talking, I'm like, oh, they're trying to sell me like a package or whatever. So this time I pulled in, I knew what the rundown was, but what was funny is there's maybe like 3 or 4 different like little factions of people. So I'm like, no, 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 we got it, we got it. Well, as we pass those, right before we turn into the to the parking lot, there was another guy, but he had like a really bright green shirt on. So, and he was stopping me, and I'm like, oh shit, maybe I really have to stop to this guy because of the way he looked. He held that authority. But again, it was the same. He was the same guy trying to do the same thing. But because of the way he looked, I started questioning, like, oh, I should listen to him. I should stop. And then as I started to pull up, I'm like, oh no, he's one of those guys. And I just kept going. But that's the power of authority. It can literally stop you in your tracks, and you'll listen to the person if you think that they are an authority in whatever field it is.
And isn't that a perfect representation of how I would call it the mass hypnosis has happened over
Mm-hmm.
time, is the positioning of authority figures. And I would even go as far as to say as now we're in a place of being re-hypnotized, like we're now, that's where people are waking up to it, right? Because they realize, holy shit, I've been duped, like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
hardcore, and not just like a oopsie daisy, but like in a very psychologically smart way, where
Mm-hmm.
they now, even as people become aware of it, Dom, it's like they become aware of it, and yet they're like, oh my gosh, how do I break these patterns? Like, how do I get out of this pattern now? So it's like we're dehypnotizing slash rehypnotizing them in the way that people actually want. And that's like one thing I want people to be cleared up, right? Like, you're not just like either being hypnotized or you're not. Like, we're constantly in some way
You're under hypnosis all the time.
all the
Everything is hypnosis.
yes, please talk about that.
Yeah. So look, every video you watch on Instagram, every podcast you listen to, every TV show, every conversation that you have is hypnotizing you, because all hypnosis is essentially you're in a trance. And when we're listening to a podcast, we go into trance. When you're driving on the freeway and you're listening to some music telling you to do foul things, you're going to be more inclined to do those things because it's getting into the subconscious, because you're in a trance. When you're watching a movie at night before you go to bed, and it's a crazy movie, and then all of a sudden you have night terrors, well, that's because your subconscious is open to it. So
Mhm.
and again, when you're just talking to people, they're hypnotizing you with the way that they tell their stories or the way they interact with you. So everything truly is hypnosis, and it's really important for people to be aware of that and really guard, and I don't mean to be afraid or anything, but
Yeah.
really pay attention to and be aware of the information that we are taking in, because it can really help you, or it can really harm you. One of my most like viral videos I ever made, I said, the video goes like this. The music you're listening to is dangerous, and here's why. Whenever you're listening to music, the frequency of the music automatically puts you in a trance. And we're in a trance, our mind is more susceptible to suggestions. And I said, when you're listening to the music itself is affirmations for our subconscious.
Yes.
So as you're listening to this frequency, your mind's open and you're hearing affirmations of whatever it may be, you will begin to manifest some of the things that you're listening to if you're like really soaking it in. So this is why oftentimes, like you see with rap music, there's a lot of crime and a lot of things that people that listen to that type, not everybody, but people listen to that music about shooting and killing and doing drugs and this and that. That's the way they live their lives. if you listen to music about
Promiscuity.
promiscuousness, how whatever that word, you're more likely to be promiscuous.
Yes.
If you listen to songs about drinking, you're more likely to drink. So everything really truly is hypnosis.
Well, okay. So first of all, yes to all of that. What would you say though to someone who's like, help me to rewire that, because I find myself drawn to those things, right? Like we do. I preach this all the time. You have got to be selective with what you're taking in all forms, visually, auditorily, ingesting too, of course, what we
Mm-hmm.
eat, but that's a whole nother topic. But if you notice yourself drawn to these things, like you actually like them, right? What do
Mm-hmm.
you think that tells us?
Yeah, I mean, I don't listen to music. And if I do, it's usually somebody else is playing it. Every now and again, maybe in the gym, I'll listen to something, but I make sure that the message that's coming across is something that is, because not all music is bad. There's empowering music. There's
Empowering,
music
yep.
that makes you feel good, to believe in yourself, to have fun and things like that. Um, but then there's music like, I don't even know. I don't even know because I don't listen to it. But like you see I don't know the names of the song, but like just girls with their asses out or whatever. It's
There's
like
some.
you're gonna be tempted to start to do that stuff, and people will. If you're listening to a sad song, you're gonna fucking feel sad. So you've got to. For me, it was a simple decision of like, okay, what do I want more? Do I want to feel good for a couple hours a day listening to music and start to have all these like or bad, but like it's funny. I was in this training. I was a participant, so another gentleman was putting it on, and I forgot how we got on the subject, but he said, "Okay, I want you to think about a time in your past, back in high school, and I want you to think of your favorite song. Just think of your favorite song, and I want you to bring back the emotions that that song made you feel." And I bet you people that are listening to this are doing that right now, and you probably are as well, because I'm hypnotizing you, right? I'm not trying to, but again, everything is hypnosis. So he's like, okay, think about it. Really feel the feelings, put yourself in that place. So then he goes, okay. And he happened to call me. He's like, Dom, when we did that exercise, how did your favorite song make you feel? And I said, it made me feel violent. Like I literally want to go beat somebody up. Like I want to fight somebody right now because the song itself was a violent song that gets you rowdy and you want to, and so, and I'm not like that. Like I used to be like get in fights and stupid shit like that all the time, but I've grown as a person. I don't listen to that kind of stuff anymore. But like I start to put myself just for those few 30 seconds back in that moment, and that feeling starts to come in. So I just avoid it. And if I am listening to something, I'm choosing to do it and I'm making sure that it's a positive message behind it.
Yeah, man, that's so powerful. Like 30 seconds, all we need to do is visualize something and puts us right into an altered state, which is both very empowering and also very scary at the same time. For me, just to tag team with you on this one, I tend to opt out of music that has words, period. And I don't know what it is, but I just go for more instrumentals, either upbeats or just frequencies, and especially for work that enhance focus. 'Cause I don't want any of that. I want to be in the steering wheel of what's happening in my mind. And if I
Mm-hmm.
ever feel a moment that I'm not, I know something like what just happened there, and you can instantly gain back control. Which comes down to, I want to talk to you about language,
Uh-huh.
specifically the language of the subconscious mind, because I think this is something that if my listeners take nothing else away from our time together today, in this episode, it's like, something you can actually do right now is to, number one, become aware of the language and how it's framed in your mind. But number two, then change that so that your subconscious mind is working more for you. So let's talk about language, and specifically the language that the subconscious mind responds to, and how to generate more positive momentum in our life by changing our language.
Yeah. So whenever you hear words, they create certain images in our mind or certain feelings in our body, right? So you say, think of a car crash. in that moment, for a split second, I'm visualizing a car crash. And then I have a physical response in my body to that image of a car crash, right? So what often happens with us, with humans, is that we get, like, I'm not human. What often happens with you little humans, oh, but I said us, so that just sounded funny. I'm like, humans, what are we talking about?
Human.
Obviously. But uh, often when we are stuck in a problem or a challenge, we get so focused on the challenge and how much we don't want it that we forget to focus on what we actually want, right? So it's like, if you are learning how to drift a car, okay, when you drift a car, essentially what happens is you hit a corner going really fast. And when you're doing that, the car looks as though it's going to crash. If there's a wall there, right? It's going to crash into the wall because that's where the car looks like it's going to go. So a rookie car drifter, if they're turning the car and all of a sudden the car is going towards the wall, they get so afraid of hitting the wall that that's all they focus on. Now, a professional drifter will hit the turn, but they'll look at where they want to go. And what ends up happening is when they focus on where they want to go, their body will naturally follow and go in that direction. It's the same thing when you learn how to fly a helicopter. One of the things they do is they'll turn off the engine to where not turn off the engine, but they'll have the helicopter nosedive. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to pull up on the, whatever you call it, lever, so that the helicopter will even itself out. Well, what happens is when people are nosediving, they get so focused on the ground that when they try to pull up the lever doesn't go anywhere. It's because their eyes are focused on the ground of where they don't want to go. So all you have to do is you literally just look up and your body will naturally pull the lever and balance you out. So for the people listening, whatever situation you're stuck in, and I know this can be challenging, and I still deal with this myself, getting stuck in a loop of something that I don't want over and over again. We've got to get ourselves out of that and focus on what do we actually want? Not what do we want to avoid, not what do we want to get away from, what do we want to go towards? And when we do that, things just naturally happen to take us down that path.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so it's like basically what you're saying is to give yourself positive suggestions and steps rather than I'm not going to do this. I don't want to be like this anymore. I hear that all the time. I know you do too. I'm not going to do that anymore. I got to stop doing this. Not, can't, won't, like all the negations, all the negative,
Mm-hmm.
rather than saying, like, literally your subconscious mind is like a young child. And so you got to be super clear, super direct, and just say, do this. Like, go here and then do this and the
Right.
next thing and the next thing. And your body, like you said, your body will follow, your body follows, your mind follows, and then everything flows. And now you've got positive momentum and now you've got more to work with. And then it's like,
Yeah, no, that's it. And again, our subconscious doesn't process the don't, the can't, the won't. It just processes pictures and symbols. When you say, I don't want to be anxious anymore, you're telling yourself anxious. So what you have to say is, hey, I want to be at peace. I want to feel calm. I want to be relaxed. And then that's what your mind will focus on, and that's how you'll feel.
yeah.
So, and it takes practice. It's not something that is just like you can do it right now, but as you go through your day, you go back in your old habits, and we get stuck in the loop of what we don't want. And it's very, if you're not paying attention, it can be very easy to go back to those negative thought loops.
I like that you said paying attention rather than being aware, because I feel like paying attention is something more clear and tangible that we can do right now, rather than, oh, I'm just becoming more aware. Like, what does that even mean? Sometimes. So that was just a little snippet. Hey, I want to finish with, if you could just do a brief explanation of how people can perform self-hypnosis.
Yeah. So remember, everything is hypnosis. So one way that you can perform self-hypnosis is just simply talking to yourself, affirming, whether it's in your head or out loud, what you actually want, right? Now, I'll give you an actual step-by-step process that you can use that will put you in a trance, and then you can do the work. So one of the things that I have my clients do is we do something called getting in the learning state. So essentially, what you do is you focus on a specific point that's 45 degrees above eye level, and then you expand your attention to your peripheral vision. So your eyes are looking at the point, but your actual attention is in your peripheral vision. Now, there's a couple of things that happen with doing this. Number one, when we focus on a point, that automatically puts us in trance. And the reason why is when we're focused on a point, we're not looking around at everything that's going on. We're not having to process as much data, right? Because if I look over here, my mind has to go, okay, the shapes, the sizes, the colors, the textures, and I look over here, the same thing. But if I just look here, my brain knows everything that's in this little space. So therefore, it doesn't have to work so much. So then what ends up happening is your brainwave cycles start to slow down. Now, the other thing that happens is, so you focus on a point, and then we look up at like a 45-degree angle at the point. So what this does is it signals to our brain, hey, it's time to relax. It's time to essentially start getting ready to go to sleep. So whenever we look up, if you've ever had somebody where they're sleeping and you open their eyelids, their eyes are rolled into the back of their head, right? That's because they're in REM sleep. So we can start to induce that process of relaxation, of that kind of sleepy feeling, by starting to look up and allow ourselves to go into that state. Now, the third part to that is getting into your peripheral vision. So, nowadays, there's something in our pupil called the rectus iris. Okay. And the rectus iris is a little muscle that's around your pupil. It almost looks like, if you really look really close in a mirror, it looks like the top of a volcano, right? So you have your pupil, which is the black part, and there's a little tiny ridge. It's in like a circle that goes around it. And then there's the outside of the eye. I don't know what it's called. But the rectus iris' job is to zoom in and zoom out, right? So now, because of modern technology and the way we live our lives, we're in what's called our foveal vision all day long, which is when we're like focused on a point, right? We're on our phones, we're in our foveal vision. We're on our computers, we're in our foveal vision. We're in our car, we're in our foveal vision. And when our foveal vision, our brainwave cycles will actually be it will be more active than going into our peripheral vision. When we're in our peripheral vision, our brainwave cycles start to slow down, and then you start tapping into that alpha state, which is where you're in the state of hypnosis. So if you could just focus on a point, keep your eyes there, open up your peripheral vision, open up the rectus iris, you will automatically feel yourself start going into a trance.
Yeah.
Then what I like to do is when you feel, and you'll feel it, you already feel it right now, don't you?
I was just going to tell my listeners, I mean, I'm obviously going through this as he's walking me through it, and I've felt this before, but like I've never heard the peripheral before. That's new for me. That's really amazing. But as I'm doing that, I'm already feeling like, oh yeah, I can feel myself entering in.
You're already in trance, right?
Yeah.
Now, you can add one more thing to this. It's not necessary, but if you're a hypnotist, this is a very powerful thing that you can do to put people in trance. But the old, what do they call that? The stigma of a hypnotist, right? Is they're holding the watch in front of your face and they're saying, oh, you're getting sleepy, right?
Yeah.
So what they're doing is when they hold the watch above eye level, your eyes are looking up, which again, you're focused on a point, you're looking up, you're starting to go into trance. But the other mechanism to that, and why it's so powerful, is when you're looking up and you start to look back and forth at the watch, we're using muscles that we don't normally use. So if you're using a muscle that you don't normally use, what's going to happen? The muscle is going to get tired, right? So what will happen is as you're doing this, you're going back and forth, your eyelids start to get heavy. And again, if you're a hypnotist, you can use all those all the things that are going on to put them even deeper in a trance, right? And that will again put you in that kind of sleepy hypnotic state. So you stay there for however long you feel that you need to tap into that state. Then you take a deep breath, and when you breathe out, you just close your eyes. And then when you close your eyes, you can take it a step further if you want, and you can imagine yourself going down a set of stairs, starting at the top from 10 down to 9, feeling comfortable, feeling relaxed. From 9 down to 8, just letting go. Okay, come back to the room. I don't want anybody to crash their car. So you do that all the way down to 0, and then you imagine there's a doorway that's opening to your subconscious, and you go within the doorway, and then you start to put suggestions, affirmations, visualization of what you want to create. And it's a very, very powerful tool. I use self-hypnosis pretty much every day, whether it's that technique or another. I'm always, tapping into my subconscious and
Me too.
visualizing, and not always visualizing, but sometimes I just need to ask a question.
Yep.
I need to get an answer to something that's stored in there.
Yep.
So yeah, it's
Yeah.
very powerful tool.
And the more you practice, because I'm gonna say I practice every single day. The more you practice, it feels, the easier access you have to this. And it's like you're working with yourself and you're working with this. People call it my higher self, my higher power, whatever. You're working with that in a way that's very collaborative, and it feels very easy and it feels very enjoyable. I was just doing that with you, and obviously I'm very hypnotizable because I'm practicing
Yeah,
this all the time. So I'm like, oh my gosh, Dom, don't do it.
I know,
I'm gonna get
She's like,
hypnotized right
okay.
now. Yeah, because it is powerful, but I do encourage people to practice because of the power that it has. So thank you for that. So step one is looking up, like you said, 45 degrees, focusing on a point, and focusing on the peripherals at the same time, taking those deep breaths, until you feel yourself entering into
Even
that.
if you just take one deep breath, so you're looking, and when you're ready, you just go. And then when you breathe out, you just close your eyes and let your head fall into your lap.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go down the stairs, and that works pretty
I
effectively.
love
It works really good with clients too. Like you can put people in trance really, really fast
it.
by doing that. Now you mentioned something that we can touch on this before we jump off. Your higher self. So many people don't know what their higher self is. And so I'll kind of explain a little bit of what it is so people can understand. So we have our conscious mind, our subconscious mind, and our higher conscious mind, our higher self, whatever you want to call it. So in Christianity, in the Bible, they would call it the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. The Father is your conscious mind, the Son is the subconscious mind, and the Holy Spirit is your higher self. Now, people in Christianity might argue that. That's what I've learned from my teachings. And if you look across Buddhism, what's the Indian one? I forget. Hinduism, all these different religions, even in the Egyptian time, they always have this Father, Son, Holy Spirit. I believe it's a different name. And what they're actually referring to is your conscious mind, your subconscious mind, your higher self. So our higher self is essentially the version of ourself that has no fear. It's our authentic self. It's the part of us that is guiding us through life if we allow it to, because you do have, with the higher self, it'll only guide you if you let it. So you can deny the existence of your higher self. You can deny the existence to all these things, and your higher self won't help you. And that's fine. But when you can really tune into your higher self, it allows you to align with your life purpose, with in every way, not just like what you do as a career, but relationships, everything. And so I urge people to figure out a way to start to develop that relationship, because when you do, you become, not only do you align with your purpose and all that, you activate your superpowers, your intuitive abilities, all kinds of cool stuff that you can with your higher self. So one of my missions or purposes on earth is to help people connect with their authentic higher self and really start to remove the layers of their traumas, of their shit that they got going on, and become that best version of themselves. So yeah, anybody that's out there, I highly recommend doing more research into that and start figuring out how you can become your authentic self.
We share that mission, Dom, because that's in our own unique way, in our own soul's purpose and dharmic way. You and I are doing the same thing in similar but different ways. And, in some ways, I describe this to people who are just dabbling with this too, as the difference between soul, spirit, and then personality, like ego. Ego being conscious, spirit being, like you said, in your phraseology, would be the sun. And then soul being like your higher self, like your soul is undamageable, pure, eternal, this existence that knows a purpose, a very specific purpose. And so, in bringing all of this kind of together is what we said in the beginning too, is merging this physical and spiritual experience. And that's really what that allows us to do when we're working with our higher self, our soul, with the spirit. That's really what we're able to do. But that comes with, like you said, the conscious part and the physical part. And yeah, what a beautiful way to end. I really appreciate you sharing that, because that's absolutely what my mission is in the world. And I feel that if in a perfect utopia, right? If everybody were operating that way in their authentic self and in their higher self and in their purpose, we would basically have heaven on earth.
Yeah, yeah, I
That's what
agree.
that would look like. So what a
People
great,
are just traumatized from either their life experience or their genetics that are causing them to act out in ways that they don't really know why. But
yeah,
it's the trauma that's been passed down for
generation.
generation after generation after generation, and then reliving that trauma until you figure it out and you clear it and you move on. But yeah, no, it's really important to start to figure out how you can become your higher self.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like such a time as this, right? I mean, there's obviously hope in that. There's ways to do that, and that's why we're here talking, and that's why there's resources on both sides, which I want you to talk about yours as we wrap up here. Um, but I feel like also that's kind of like this season in humanity right now is a lot of people here healing and clearing generational trauma. So it's really beautiful to see. It's really beautiful to be a part of, and I'm honored to be fulfilling my dharmic purpose as that's happening. And I know you are too. So it's really an honor to be here with you doing that.
Well, yeah, thank you for having me on. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah, enlightening for sure for me. So and I know for all my listeners. So first of all, you guys, first of all, a reminder to share this episode, because I know for a fact that there are a plethora of people out there that need to hear this information. First of all, it's simple. It's spiritual. It's both deep and simple. So thank you, Dom, for that explanation. And please help my listeners find you in an easy way. Where can we find you? And
Yeah,
also,
if you just go to Dom the Hypnotist on every platform, Facebook, Instagram. I just started putting content on TikTok, YouTube. Just type in Dom the Hypnotist, and you'll see me on there. And follow me, shoot me a message. You can, if you're interested in working with me or somebody within my network of people, you can book a consultation. So yeah.
yeah, and I know you have the retreat in Tulum coming up in November. So if you follow all of his stuff, I'm sure you're going to find that information there too. Don, once again, just thank you so much for your time today. And thank you guys so much for supporting the show, for your constant, unending listening. Again, rate it, share, subscribe. And until next time, we will talk to you very soon. And thank you, Dom.
All right. Thank you, Sarah.